Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you all for coming. I'm Cheryl Hurst, Director of Education and External Relations here at KSC, and it's my pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremonies this afternoon. On behalf of everyone here at the Space Center and all of NASA, I'm pleased you all could join us. We're very excited to share our wonderful facility with you and to be hosting this special commemoration. We will begin with the presentation of colors by the United States Air Force 45th Space Wing Honor Guard from Patrick Air Force Base, and the singing of the national anthem by Tech Sergeant Altramise Myers. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you to the 45th Space Wing Honor Guard for that stirring introduction. You may please be seated. Before I introduce our first speaker, I want to recognize an honored guest that we have in the audience with us, Mr. Patrick Gavin, representing Senator Posey's office, and Zach Stampella, the Senior Constituent Services Representative for Senator Rubio. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Our first speaker this afternoon is the director of the John F. Kennedy Space Center and Space Shuttle astronaut, Mr. Bob Cabana. Mr. Cabana has flown 4 Space Shuttle missions, 2 as pilot and 2 as commander, including serving as commander of the Endeavour on the first Space Station Assembly mission in December of 1998. Bob is a member of the Astronaut Hall of Fame and a man who served our country with distinction as a colonel in the United States Marine Corps. Please join me in welcoming the 10th director of the John F. Kennedy Space Center, Bob Cabana.
Thanks, Cheryl. Good afternoon and welcome to the Kennedy Space Center. I can't think of a more appropriate and fitting place to have this unveiling and dedication today. Human spaceflight has come a long way since our first flight 50 years ago. As we prepare to take the next step in human exploration beyond our home planet, it's only fitting that we honor those who paved the way for us with Project Mercury. In 1959, the newly formed National Aeronautics and Space Administration invited 110 of America's top test pilots to volunteer for the manned spaceflight program. To his dismay, Alan Shepard, who read about the NASA invitations in the newspaper, couldn't understand why he didn't receive an invitation. As it turns out, he was meant to, but it was misplaced by the Admiral's staff after a timely delivery by our Postal Service, Steve. As we all know, Shepard ended up among the 7 pilots chosen for Project Mercury. Those became the first explorers known as astronauts. On May 5th, 1961, Shepard spent a little over 15 minutes in Freedom 7, traveled more than 5,000 miles per hour, and reached an altitude of 116 miles above the Earth, all in a 6x6-foot capsule. This was the first time that a human had maneuvered a space vehicle, and it was watched by millions of people around the world. Between 1961 and 1963, NASA made history with a total of 6 piloted missions that accomplished their goals of orbiting a crewed spacecraft around the Earth, investigating a human's ability to function in space, and recovering both astronaut and spacecraft safely. To date, every crewed mission has launched from NASA, by NASA, has launched here from the Cape. And with a cutting-edge 21st century launch complex, we plan to keep it that way. Our Launch Services program at the Kennedy Space Center serves as a bridge from Earth to space for the NASA and non-NASA sponsored science, exploration, and technology demonstration missions. These missions, as described by our administrator, Charlie Bolden, enable us to explore new worlds, develop more innovative technologies, foster new industries, increase our understanding of the Earth, expand our presence in the solar system, and inspire the next generation of explorers. The Messenger spacecraft, currently orbiting Mercury for the first time, is doing just that. MESSENGER stands for Mercury, Surface, Space, Environment, Geochemistry, and Ranging, and it was launched nearly 7 years ago. MESSENGER just entered Mercury's orbit on March 17th of this year, and during its 1-year primary mission, the probe is scheduled to acquire more than 75,000 images, unraveling the history and evolution of the solar system's innermost planet. Today, the United States Postal Service honors NASA by immortalizing the program Mercury and the Messenger spacecraft in stamped form as 2 historic events that frame a remarkable 50-year period of discovery and exploration. I don't know about you, but I look forward to the next 50 years in what space exploration is going to bring. I want to thank the United States Postal Service for recognizing the amazing feats accomplished by the men and women who have made NASA what it is today, and I want to thank all of you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I'm now pleased to introduce Mr. Steve Massey, our dedicating official from the United States Postal Service. Like many of us here today, Mr. Massey also has extensive experience in the aerospace industry. Before joining the Postal Service 2 years ago, Mr. Massey worked for nearly 20 years in finance with BAE Systems, a British aerospace and defense company. Today, Mr. Massey joins us as Vice President, Finance and Planning for the U.S. Postal Service. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Steve Massey.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor for me to be here today to celebrate the dedication of our 2 newest commemorative forever stamps. Through our stamp program, the U.S. Postal Service has the privilege of celebrating some of the wonders, achievements, and people that have helped to make our nation great. Today we honor 2 of those achievements. First, the 50th anniversary of astronaut Alan Shepard's historic flight. America's first manned spaceflight, and second, the recent unmanned messenger mission to investigate the planet Mercury. 50 years ago tomorrow, Alan Shepard blasted off as people around the world watched anxiously on television. Shepard's flight reached a maximum speed of roughly 8 times the speed of sound, and it reached a maximum height of 116 miles above the Earth. As we all know, that flight was very widely acclaimed. According to the New York Times at the time, that 15-minute flight roused the country to one of its highest peaks of exultation since the end of World War II. And because of that flight, President Kennedy declared that America should commit itself to achieving the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. President Kennedy served notice to the world that a daring and ambitious race was underway. The Mercury project set the U.S. on a path that led to our stunning first moon landing in 1969, the crowning technological achievement of the 20th century. Alan Shepard would go to the moon himself with Apollo 14 just 2 years later. And who can forget that wonderful golf shot that he hit out there on the moon and went for miles and miles and miles, as they say. And also, did you know that the post office in Alan Shepard's birthplace, Derry, New Hampshire, was named by an act of Congress the Alan B. Shepard Post Office Building? That, too, is quite an achievement. There is also a connection between the Postal Service and the Mercury project. Long ago, courageous men ventured out alone, like Alan Shepard, into a bold new frontier 100 years before Shepard's space shot. These men of the Pony Express carried saddlebags of mail connecting the great hopes and the proud spirit of our nation. Messengers indeed. And so we come to Messenger, another major milestone in space exploration. It was first launched in August 2004 to investigate the planet Mercury and successfully entered orbit in March of this year. The first images that have come back from Messenger to Earth are spectacular. And as Mr. Cabana has pointed out, our study of this valuable information is only just beginning. We may learn how the planet took shape and possibly find clues to the origin of our solar system. It's not easy to capture the significance of these achievements on 2 stamps, but as you will see, the outstanding artwork of illustrator Donato Giancola of Brooklyn, New York, under the direction of Phil Jordan of Falls Church, Virginia, has done a wonderful job. Based on NASA photographs and images, the stamps depict the brave, pioneering spirit of America's first man in space and the fascinating mission to investigate the planet Mercury. So now, on behalf of our nation and the United States Postal Service, I'd like to ask today's participants to join me as we dedicate our Project Mercury and Messenger Mission commemorative stamp issue.
Thank you, Steve. Now that we've had the honor to witness the unveiling of these special stamps, it is indeed my privilege to introduce our next speaker. As a Navy pilot, Scott Carpenter flew missions for the U.S. Navy during the Korean War and was a test pilot at the National Naval Air Test Center and a Naval Air Intelligence Officer. Proving he indeed had the right stuff, Mr. Carpenter was selected as one of the original 7 Mercury Project astronauts in 1959. He served as a backup pilot during preparation for America's first manned orbital spaceflight, and in 1962, he flew the second manned orbital flight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our very special guest, Scott Carpenter.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Today we celebrate the 50th anniversary of many, many important issues. Among them is the first steps from the home planet that were taken by the family of man. That was signified by first, unfortunately, and Al Shepard didn't like this much, but by the Soviet flight of Yuri Gagarin. But shortly after that, Alan Shepard joined the battle for the United States with our respected comrades in the Soviet Union, and the battle was joined, partly because of the resounding success of Alan's flight in Freedom 7, and also because of the charisma and vision and Camelot that belonged to John F. Kennedy. He announced that we should go to the moon, and that was largely a response to Alan's success, aided by the blinding genius of Wernher von Braun, who showed us how to do what the president said we should do. We finally went to the moon, but that was because of what was started by Alan B. Shepard in his Freedom 7. That event is what we celebrate here today, and I am so pleased to notice that the United States Postal Service has chosen to honor Mercury and Alan Shepard with the stamp. It is, I think, appropriate to mention another item about this stamp. In the wisdom of the United States Postal Service, and in viewing the custom of today, a decision was made not to put 44 cents on Al's stamp, but it is forever. That's appropriate to the stamp, but it is also appropriate to the time we should honor and remember Alan B. Shepard and Freedom 7. Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter, thank you so much. What an incredible honor to have him here with us today, isn't it? Our next speaker is Jim Adams, NASA's Deputy Director for Planetary Science. In 30 years with NASA, Mr. Adams has worked on projects ranging from weather satellites, deep space probes, and lunar landers and rovers. He is the recipient of 3 NASA medals for exceptional service, including outstanding leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jim Adams.
Thank you. I was talking to my wife this morning, and I said, "How do you follow Scott Carpenter?" And she said, "Just be yourself." So that's all you get. It's an impressive thing to think about, if you go back in history, how explorers and science have worked together hand in hand to understand the environment and the world we live in. And it's fitting today that we should be commemorating Alan Shepard's first flight, the Mercury project, and our exploration of Mercury, because that's exactly what's going on. His science and exploration working together to understand where we're at and where we're going. Both stamps honor an American first, the first human space flight, the first satellite to ever orbit the innermost planet of our own solar system. The Messenger spacecraft traveled, as you heard already, 6.5 years in order to get to Mercury. And in that time, it traveled over 5 billion miles in order to explore the inner solar system on the way to Mercury. Along the way, we've learned a lot about Venus and about the solar wind and about the inner solar system itself, and we expect that over the next 12 months, as we orbit that mysterious planet, that we'll learn a lot about the planet itself and maybe unlock some keys associated with the formation of our own solar system. The Messenger spacecraft carries the most comprehensive suite of scientific instruments ever to be flown into the inner solar system, and it will return data that will be used by scientists for years to come in our understanding of what's going on within our solar system. It's fitting that NASA and the Postal Service should commemorate these two events together. NASA and the Postal Service are two American institutions. This is American exploration, American science. America is exploring the solar system and bringing you the message, and that's what we're all about. We should be proud of that. As exploration and science work together in the future, we all look forward to what the future holds. I'd like to think that my children would be standing here someday, or sitting here, and listening to people explain how explorers and science have worked together to move the influence of humans out further than low Earth orbit, further than the moon, further even than Mars. Someday, I hope that we will have satellites with astronauts on board looking back from Saturn. And then we will have moved the bubble of human influence beyond the influence of Earth, and we will have become true explorers. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. So the list just keeps growing of our special speakers. On this very special occasion, Julie Shepard Jenkins is representing her family as the daughter of Alan B. Shepard, the man honored on this Mercury Project commemorative stamps. Julie's sisters, Laura Churchley and Alice Wackerman, are also here today with us. And I'd like to take a moment here and wish Alice a happy birthday tomorrow. We're so happy you're able to be with us. Mrs. Jenkins carries on her father's legacy by making presentations to middle school students and many others. An avid space enthusiast, she believes space travel is essential to expand human horizons and to encourage innovation. At this time, I would like to invite Laura and Alice to the stage. And please join me in welcoming Julie Shepard Jenkins.
Thank you all for being here today at this wonderful United States Postal Service ceremony for the unveiling of the stamp for Alan Bartlett Shepard, Jr., his own postal stamp. Our family is very honored to be here today. And speaking of family, we have 20 members of our family here today, and I would like all of them to stand up. Stand up. Of all the places in the world to hold this ceremony, the Rocket Garden of Cape Kennedy is the best place ever. We have often walked among these rockets and marveled at their different shapes and sizes. Each individual rocket in its shape and size, and that they were able to send people such as our father into outer space. Americans should be so proud that the United States has been the leader in space exploration for 50 years. Now, Daddy always had to start a talk with a few jokes. So, to set the record straight, once and for all, since we are at a stamp unveiling, the Shepard daughters did at some point in their youth receive a few lickings. I would also like to tell you about the first time that my father went to the White House. It was a couple of days after May 5th, 1961, after his flight. He and John F. Kennedy were sitting talking about the future of space and space exploration. And in skipped Caroline Kennedy. So John F. Kennedy introduced Caroline to the first American into space. She looked at Daddy, and then she looked at her father with a very quizzical look, and she says, "Where's the chimpanzee?" And thinking about our father's reaction to this prestigious honor, we realize that Daddy is the only single astronaut to be pictured on a United States postal stamp. It will help people to remember what a great leader for the astronauts he was. My sisters and I think Daddy would acknowledge this honor not only for himself, but for the men and the women that built the rockets and sent him into space safely. Daddy never thought of himself as a hero. He was just doing his job. My family would like to thank the United States Postal Service for honoring our father with this uniquely designed stamp. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We also would like to acknowledge NASA for hosting this ceremony in such a beautiful and appropriate setting. And one last thing, please take advantage of your new ability to send our father into space again. Put a stamp on a letter.
Good job, Julie.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Julie. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our final speaker for today, NASA's 12th Administrator and retired U.S. Marine Corps Major General Charles Frank Bolden, Jr., warmly known to the NASA family as Charlie. This is his second stint with NASA. He leads the NASA team after serving as an astronaut during the 80s and 90s while a member of the U.S. Marine Corps. He traveled to orbit 4 times aboard the Space Shuttle, commanding 2 missions. His flights included deployment of the Hubble Space Telescope and the first joint U.S.-Russian shuttle mission. He later returned to active duty in the Marine Corps and held numerous domestic and overseas commands before his retirement from the Corps in 2003. He was inducted into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame in 2006. Please welcome NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden.
Thank you all so much for coming out, and I join everyone in welcoming you. Before I start with formal remarks, I think it's appropriate that I kind of remind everybody about, we actually suffered some devastation in the NASA family this past week. Even as we sit here in this beautiful sunlight, we have members of our NASA family in and around Huntsville, Alabama, who are still trying to pick up the pieces. We've got about 80% of our NASA workforce and about 70% of the contractor workforce that have been accounted for, but we're still trying to make sure that we can account for everybody. So I would ask you, as we celebrate on this occasion, this very, very joyous occasion, that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Again, you know, Scott, Jim, Julie, and vicariously Laura and Alice, I thank all of you for the moving words that talked about Project Mercury and about the Messenger program, the Messenger mission. You've given us a human perspective on these important parts of our nation's history. And I just asked Julie, Alice, I said, you know, I was thinking, and it did not occur to me until I was sitting there listening to your introduction, that you had quite a birthday candle when on the 5th of May. So what a special birthday in many respects. I also want to thank the U.S. Postal Service for their initiative in bringing awareness of space flight and science to wider audiences through these 2 works of art. And that's really what they are. I hope all of you agree with me that they're absolutely beautiful. So today we celebrate the inaugural manned flight of Project Mercury and our historic first orbital mission to the planet Mercury. These are 2 enormously important points separated by years on the NASA continuum. They're joined by more than just a name. They embody the spirit of innovation and doing big things for which NASA has always been known. When Alan Shepard launched toward the stars 50 years ago, no American had ever done so. The so-called Mercury 7 were a handful of brave men, each of whom would accomplish great things. Things no one had done before. We thank all of them, and we thank the scientists who conceived a messenger and the missions like it that are continuing to fill rewritten textbooks with new knowledge about the universe and to inspire future explorers with things we can find out if we keep our sights set high and try hard. I was just a teenager when Alan stepped into Freedom 7 capsule and entered history, but I remember being tremendously moved by his bravery. As a test pilot, I can imagine he was much more focused on making the flight a success than he was about any legacy for posterity. On the strength of his accomplishment, NASA was able to begin building the leadership role in human spaceflight that we have held ever since. And he set an example that so many have followed. The crews that orbited and landed on the moon, the astronauts who have flown the space shuttle, particularly those who flew the first space shuttle, Bob Crippen and John Young. That was effectively the vehicle's first test flight as well. They all walked through the door that Alan blasted open. And these stamps, which will go out by the millions across this country, are also a testament to the thousands of NASA men and women who also shared dreams of human and robotic spaceflight and of enlarging our knowledge of the universe. The people of mission control, of launch control, the ground crews, the scientists and engineers with great ideas who translated those ideas into real hardware. Since 1958, they have sought through their ceaseless efforts to chart a course to the stars for the human race and to create the eyes and ears that we are able to send far and wide through amazing spacecraft like Messenger and its brethren across our solar system. Today, we celebrate two firsts, and we celebrate the future, because at NASA, each first is grown and expanded until we make the next breakthrough, like a space station flying 250 miles overhead right now, on which men and women have lived continuously for more than 10 years, a logical successor of Alan's pioneering work, and missions in testing and design stages right now that will take us farther and deeper into our universe, as Jim has mentioned. I'm honored to be a part of the grand history that includes Alan Shepard and the first orbiting mission to Mercury. And we're just getting started. Our future holds many firsts, new destinations, new capabilities. Along with the rest of the NASA family, I look forward to giving the Postal Service plenty more ideas for stamps to honor the space program in the coming years, as we in NASA reach for new heights to reveal the unknown, so the things we learn and the things we do will make life better for all humankind. Thanks to all of you again for being here, and thanks for allowing me to be a part of this program.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the speaking portion of our program. I have a few administrative notes that I wanted to offer for you. We have a very special opportunity for you today. For a limited time, some of our program participants will be available in front of the space shop, which is just over the bridge past the ISS scene to the space shop, and you can get some autographs on this occasion. In the interest of time, we respectfully ask that you limit your items to 2. Also, the Mercury Project and Messenger stamps are on sale here today in front of the space shop. You'll be able to get a special hand cancellation with the official first day of issue postmark on anything bearing one of those postage stamps. On behalf of NASA and the U.S. Postal Service, I want to thank you all and thank our honored guests, as well as all of you for helping us commemorate this very special occasion.